Hi, this is Shane Starr on a chilly Monday morning before work. I am doing a new episode of Which Functions Are at Play. In order to provide the proper context for this, I'm going to give a brief introduction of our business, my specific role within the business model, and then we'll move on to the situation. So, as many of you know, I'm in the property management profession, and much of what we do is logistics, meaning we oversee a product from beginning to its end of cycle. In this case, the product is apartments, and part of that is people, our residents. So we go from the very beginning when they look at apartments and decide to lease with us, through their residency, through post residency, and the closing of their residency. So basically, my role in this has sort of grown from individual top performer to more of a quality control role. So my job is basically to prepare our property for audit compliance. So this involves really checking into the activities of our team, ensuring that things are done the proper way so that we are in compliance with our company brand standards. So this involves when a resident is a prospect before they're a resident. We need to make sure we have their IDs and that the IDs are not expired or false. We need to make sure that they have property insurance and that they have the required numbers as far as what their not their deductible, but how much property insurance they have. We have certain limits that they have to abide by. Um, we need to make sure we have their move-in dates right. We need to make sure that the funds have been paid prior to giving them keys. Then we provide them with a good move-in experience, giving them directions on how to move forward with their residency with us when they encounter problems or issues with their apartment. They need to know who to turn to, where to go, how to provide a request. Um, Once they come to the end of their lease, we provide them with a renewal offer, which involves market rates and numbers, which sometimes shift. And we need to make sure we have accurate numbers. What might be the proper number today won't be the same as yesterday. And if we give them yesterday's today, then we have a problem. We also, when they decide to move out, we have to get the notice to vacate dates in for legal reasons too. We have to get the dates right. We have to make sure we have a notice to vacate on file. We need to make sure we catch our notices to vacate. We don't want someone walking in, dropping their keys off, and we're saying, you're not on notice. And they're like, yeah, I told so and so. And then, that's a big problem. Post residency, again, the NTV is important because that determines the charges for rent at the end of the lease. Many people go over by a couple days. We need to make sure we get the proper days done, um, recorded, documented. And then we have what we call a FAS, which is a final account statement. And in those, we determine charges for damages to the apartment, accounting for wear and tear, proration of certain elements like carpet life, paint life. When we have charges, we have to account for those with photo documentation and also purchase orders and invoices from our vendors to prove that we have done the necessary inspections and that these charges are truly incurred and not just coming up from the top of our heads. Sometimes we deal with evictions, and because of the legal sensitivity of those matters, we need to make sure we have our dates right, document all conversations with the residents, have all of that dialed in, because if we're missing anything and then we show up in court, we can cost the money a lot. We can cost our company a lot of money, and we need to ensure that we're protecting our liability and make sure we have all our standards met, and we can defend our position if need be. Okay, so that is the introduction to what we do and what I personally do as an officer of our company. And part of this, again, with logistics, you're overseeing the process from beginning to end, quality control, making sure that brand standards are met, not just with things, property quality, property inspection reports are one thing, but with people are dynamic. So sometimes if you come up with some inconvenient truths, people are going to push back. Our situation is one of those. So we have someone working for the company, and part of my process is looking over their casework and determining where we might have missed something or could have done something better. Again, with the overall principle being we want things to go properly, smoothly, and efficiently for us and our residents. And usually I find a couple of errors here or there, but in this particular case, I found several significant errors. Late assignments, errors in paperwork, missing assignments even. And when we had a meeting about this, they were all listed. Part of this process is to list and then provide a score of each individual working in a particular complex, and then that gives us an overall audit score for the property itself. So I have to review these numbers with each of the people under review. So this person completely minimized the findings, said that, this isn't a big deal, I'm doing a great job, I don't see what the problem is. And some of these were really bad, missed NTVs, missed missed work orders, so everyone thought they were done when they weren't, premature closings of certain casework documents that led people to think they were finished when they weren't. And when I pointed these out, the person said these exact words, well, that's just your truth. And I'm like, this isn't my truth or your truth. This is the truth. Here are the numbers don't lie. This is what we found out of all these cases. Here's how many went wrong. Here's how many went well. And she said, well, I'm doing a great job. I've gotten good property reviews. And I had to let her know, that's apples and oranges. We're not talking about that. Moreover, on your most recent property review about a smooth move-in, this person's keys didn't work because they weren't programmed correctly. Stuff like that. So the sort of argument went back and forth. The disagreement and the just pure denial that there's a problem makes instruction or improving the situation nearly impossible. And so here's the irony. After all the reports are sent and done and reviewed, the person just gets away with it. It's amazing. So we have other people with far less errors coming, getting called in. Hey, we need to discuss this. What happened here with this? Why did you do A instead of B? This puts us at risk. We need to fix this. Moving forward, let's do it that way. This person, when I talked to the person in charge, I was just told, oh, that's just her. We'll work through it. And I'm just thinking, okay, that's not my call, so I'm staying out of it. But then I heard through the grapevine that they're moving. They've applied for some other positions that would be promotions. And I just think, how do some people get away with this? How do some people get by. Now, the easy answer here, which functions are at play, it would be an FE thing, maybe an FI thing, but I have a strong feeling that this isn't an isolated incident, not just with me or here or her, but with people in general. There's an old saying that has haunted me for a long time, and it continues to do so. And that is a saying that says, it's not what you know, it's who you know that counts. And I don't want to believe that. I don't like to believe that, but unfortunately, that seems to be the case. So, this person's really popular. All about the vibe in the room, pleasant to interact with, but the raw numbers on an audit just aren't there. And it's not a question of whether I like the person, it's a question of how efficiently are they doing their job. So let me know what you think if you got this far in the video. Which functions are at play, just in general, with people such as the one I described, who seem to get around rules, policies, protocols, and not only do they get away with their errors, but they actually move up. Not only do they keep their job, they get promoted. How does that work? Someone let me know. That's all I have for this morning. Peace out.